I was on the hunt for the route of the Exodus, searching for the sea that Moses and the Israelites crossed after leaving Egypt. This sea was said to have miraculously parted, making a way for the Israelites to cross, and yet destroying Pharaoh and his army. The mystery of where this event took place has captivated people for thousands of years. Can I now verify its true location? The way I was drawn into this investigation goes back to 2001. I heard reports that Exodus explorers diving in the Red Sea were making exciting discoveries of Pharaoh's army on the sea floor. That's what first brought me to Egypt. These divers claimed to have found chariot wheels encrusted in coral, along with skeletons. It was so intriguing and very controversial. But over time, I began to realize there was more involved here. Because where you place the sea crossing determines the size of the miracle needed. And it's the nature of this miracle that now grips me. Not just where it happened, but how it happened. I discovered that there are two main approaches that explain this miracle very differently. And there are people of faith in both camps. I traveled to the wilderness of southern Israel to meet with Australian Deborah Hearn. For Hearn, it all began in 1995 while on a family vacation to the Holy Land. She was introduced to the debate over the true location of Mount Sinai. She would become captivated with solving the mystery of the Israelites' journey in the wilderness and invest over 12 years of her life to research the subject. This culminated in her doctoral thesis on the route of the Exodus. For a long time, the idea was that the Israelites crossed down through here and crossed the Suez.
Yeah.
If you look at maps,
Yeah.
that are 300-400 years old, that this was a common understanding and that they went off into this mountain down here.
I was raised on that view that they actually basically crossed through about 10 kilometres south of Suez, but it's still very deep. The wind can't do it. There's no way the wind can do it. You have to rely then on a spectacular miracle. Why mention the wind?
Hearn brought up an important factor. One reason the Egyptian approach sees the sea crossing happening through a shallow body of water is because the Bible mentions the work of the wind.
And the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided.
Hearn takes the Egyptian approach, seeing the events happening on a small scale, with shorter travel to a sea crossing at one of the shallow lakes near Egypt. Why do you think that scholars started to shift away from the Suez and move the thinking further north to a more of a marshy lake?
The shift from a spectacular Suez crossing happened because the scholars became uncomfortable with the supernatural, with the patently supernatural, and they were looking for a more natural explanation.
Do you think it was a larger miracle, or do you think it was a smaller miracle?
The text indicates it was very large.
Jodelle Onstadt was an agnostic that went on a 16-year personal journey looking for evidence of the Bible. Her search for answers led her into archaeology, history, and biblical research. She found the proof for God that she was looking for and wrote the nearly 1,200-page treatise, Yahweh Exists. Onstadt takes a Hebrew approach, which sees the events of the Exodus on a much larger scale, including the miracles, with the sea crossing at the distant and deep Gulf of Aqaba.
The one thing that separates Israel's God from all the other deities over the course of the history is this idea of the parting of the Red Sea, this huge miracle. And it is referred to, I believe, over 20 times throughout the Hebrew text as being the defining moment of bringing Israel and making them a nation.
Talking with Deb Hearn and Jodel Onstad, I could understand how their view of miracles impacts where they place the sea crossing. The Egyptian approach favors naturalistic explanations, meaning that God used something in nature to cause the miracle to happen, while the Hebrew approach sees miracles as spectacular events beyond natural explanation. I just want to know which of these views best matches the biblical account, because understanding the nature of miracles might be the clue to solving this mystery. Oxford professor C.S. Lewis had an aversion to God and miracles as a young atheist in the university. He would later change his mind and become one of the most influential voices for Christianity in the 20th century. He and his good friend, fellow Oxford professor J.R.R. Tolkien, author of The Lord of the Rings, would often talk about the deep ideas in the fantasy worlds they created and their connection to our own.
You see, Tollers, our fantasies must show that there is something quite outside this world of ours, especially in this age of machines and artificial environments which we have made for ourselves. Goodness gracious, it's becoming hard enough to gain glimpses of the natural world, let alone the supernatural one to which it points.
Absolutely, Jack. True magic is the power to do good.
I am convinced that miracles are a retelling in small letters of that very same story that is written across the world in letters too large for some to see.
Personally, I had always thought of these miracles as spectacular events. But I wanted to better understand how the Egyptian approach views God working through natural causes. So I traveled to England to meet Sir Cullen Humphreys, who wrote The Miracles of Exodus. He's a highly awarded physicist working in the field of material science and the director of research at the University of Cambridge. In 2010, Humphreys was knighted by the Queen of England for his service to science. As a Christian, he sees no conflict between science and his faith. So what do we have here?
So here we have, this is the latest machine in the world. It's first in the world to grow LEDs and other transistors and so on. In the future, we want to have micro LEDs, which can actually stimulate individual neurons in the brain so we can understand how the brain works. Then we may have a cure for Alzheimer's disease, you know, so really important.
Yeah. While Humphreys views the miracles of Exodus as naturalistic, he also thinks that the sea crossing was far from Egypt at the Gulf of Aqaba, consistent with the Hebrew approach. So he has a hybrid approach, combining aspects of the two views. Why did you become interested in that particular story of the Exodus?
The first thing which struck me was the characteristics of Mount Sinai described in the Bible match the characteristics of a volcano exactly. I mean, it's just a superb observation of an erupting volcano that was being described.
Mm-hmm. Professor Humphreys' view of Mount Sinai as an erupting volcano helped me to understand how many in the Egyptian view see all the miracles of Exodus. From the plagues to the parting of the sea and even the pillar of cloud and fire the Israelites were following. For them, everything had natural causes.
On the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning, and a thick cloud on the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast, so that all the people in the camp trembled. Now Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke because the Lord had descended on it in fire. The smoke of it went up like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled greatly. And as the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him in thunder.